video today, and I've just loaded up a baby quilt that I decided I'm going to do some ruler work on. I was going through my rulers and I'm like, you know what, I really want to do some ditching, really show off the piecework. So I pulled out my straight rulers. And you know that I have two straight edge rulers, both made from Handy Quilter, but one is slightly larger than the other. And do you know why I have two straight rulers from Handy Quilter? Well, believe it or not, I use both of these all the time with it. I wanted to show you the differences between the two, so come on down here and take a look. I have here two straight edge rulers from Handy Quilter. We have the HQ Skinny and then the HQ Straight. Now visually you can see we have a size difference, right? HQ Skinny is 2 inches by 10 inches. The Straight is 3 inches by 12 inches. Now why does that matter? I'm going to show you. In certain quilts, having this extra acrylic can be much easier, and in certain quilts I need it to be smaller to get into tiny spaces. Now they both have the same measurements, they have the same cross marks and the same references, right? So really they are the same ruler, but having two sizes is incredibly helpful. So I've got this little baby quilt here. It's made of half rectangle blocks, and I've decided that I want to echo the chevron shape that it's creating into the border, right? I want to take my ruler and kind of create those ditched lines into the border like it's magically continuing. Well, what ruler do I use to do that, right? I've got two, and believe it or not, one is better than the other for what I'm going to do in this situation. Now, depending on what kind of quilter you are, if you're a quilter for hire, if you're own, you might not always have a lot of room on your backing, right? I've got about 4 inches here, and it's fine. It definitely works. But once I add my ruler base, and once I add a ruler, do you see how I'm going to be bumping up onto my side grips? Right, I'm going to be having some difficulty to kind of capture that angle. With my HQ Straight, my bigger ruler, I'm really limited in the kind of angle that I can get lining up along this edge. That's where Skinny comes in. I know it doesn't look like a huge difference, but trust me, it is. I have much easier way of getting around and maneuvering to create angles with my Skinny when I'm along an edge of a quilt that's dealing with a side grip. Now, of course, I could extend my backing. I could pin on some fabric and then pull my extension off of that. That would absolutely work, but that takes more time, right? From when I have to advance, that takes more time to advance, having to unpin and unclamp. It's making it smaller than it needs to be in terms of time. I really want this to be fun and fast and not have to worry about adding in all of those extensions. So in this case, I'm going to use my HQ Skinny when I'm doing the borders. Now, will I use this for the entire quilt? Let's find out. All right, let's look at this block down here. I've got this beautiful half rectangle, and I know I'm going to want to ditch and probably do an inside echo. I love inside echoes from it. So if I look at the positioning of where my ditch is going to be, and let's say I've got my Skinny, right? I would just on that angle, and I've got my Skinny lining up. Well, for comfort's sake, I'm using like kind of near the center of the ruler for pivoting and for holding. I can't reach my other point, right? If I even come up the extension so you can see, I can't reach that point with this same ruler. I could shift and I can find out, oh, it's exactly the length of that block. That means it would work, but it's going to be a little difficult. I switch to my Straight. Do you see how much extra space I have here? My goodness, is that going to make quilting easier? I won't have to shift. I can just hold the ruler and go all the way along in one. Maybe a bit of shifting just for pivoting purposes, but it's going to be much easier to use my full Straight. A lot of people like the HQ Straight edge better as well because it's easier to hold along your blocks. If you're ditching, if you're doing any sort of just line work, point-to-point quilting, I've got a lot more grip here on the ruler itself. I can kind of hold almost my whole hand, resting my fingers down. I'm making sure I'm nice and comfortable. My wrist is at a nice angle, so that way I can ditch and do whatever other kind of line work that I'm going to be having to do. Now granted, I can do the same thing with my skinny, but I can't have my hand down. I have to raise my hand up. I have to be up on my fingers. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but notice I have now a different angle of my wrist, and that way I'm creating a different bit of tension with this as I'm quilting, which means my hand and arm is going to tire out faster using the skinny than I'm using the straight. Again, straight skinny can get me nice and relaxed. Skinny, I am up on my fingertips. I've got more pressure happening in my wrist. Again, totally doable for those instances where you need it, but if I have the option, I'm really always going to go to my straight first. Same is going to be said for angles when you're looking along the top. Let's say if you are ditching a block on point, right? And you need to get up onto an angle and you don't want to have to advance. Your HQ straight might not have enough movement to get up to that point where the HQ skinny can. So lo and behold, what am I going to do? I'm going to use both. I love both of these rulers. Handy Quilter makes excellent rulers to help me in my quilting. I love using them, so I'm going to use the skinny and the straight in this quilt. All right, guys, I need to get started. I am on a deadline with this. I'm going to get quilting. I hope you guys have happy quilting and always try out new rulers and watch us on MK Quilts University for more tips and tricks to use rulers in your quilting. Happy quilting, everybody. Let's get going.